So let's talk about this de-escalation that's apparently happening in Russia. Now, to listen to the mainstream media and the Biden administration, you would have been convinced over the past few days, right, that Russia was about to invade Ukraine and that NATO would be dragged into an endless war. Well, you would be forgiven because you could say, hey, you know what, I saw this on CNN, or I saw this on MSNBC, or I read Time Magazine, whatever, right? President Biden said the threat was real, right? That an invasion is going to happen. You know, you could have been listening to the American intelligence operatives, sources that were telling, mainstream media, right? We have intelligence sources from inside the CIA, inside the Pentagon, that are telling us that this is going to happen, that there's going to be an invasion. Remember this? We showed this to you yesterday. Like, this was literally what was being told and said. Russia set to invade Ukraine at 1 a.m. tomorrow with massive missile blitz and 200,000 troops.
Well, and remember that little clip of Mike Pompeo saying, "Yeah, we lie. The CIA lies. That's what we do." And it's like, we really think that any of this is truth? Like how can we ever trust the CIA and the intelligence world, because they've lied us into how many wars?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's exactly what Pompeo said, right? He said that's what we do. When we're in the CIA, when we're in the NSA, that's what we do. We have training programs on how to lie to the American people.
And not only
about
that,
it.
yeah, and the whole crowd laughed as well. And it's like they specifically go into these countries and try to provoke war and don't say anything. They send these shadow little puppets in there, and they're like, okay, what can we do to provoke the government? Like, they go in there and they start these things, and then they tell us the narrative over here of the other side, like what they're doing, while they're over there doing nefarious things behind our back, completely paid for by us. Mm-hmm. Don't have to say a word because it's all secret. Like, oh, no, we can't tell you. It's all secret.
By the way, you as taxpayers pay for this crap, right?
Yeah.
You're paying for this, right? Russia set to invade Ukraine at 1 a.m. tomorrow with massive missile blitz. Like, your tax dollars are funding this propaganda, right? Of course, this didn't happen, right? Russia did not invade Ukraine, and Russia called our bluff on this whole thing. Look, I love these reporters, like this ABC reporter with his little helmet on. He's on the front lines, covering it, the rising tensions on the front lines, I'm an embedded war reporter, and I'm here to give you the truth. As we reported yesterday here on the show, we have not been falling for that mainstream media BS that suggests that Russia is the aggressor here. We reported that Russia did, yes, move large number of troops into personnel carriers and on trains back home to their home territories. Wall Street reacted yesterday with jubilance, putting up fantastic numbers. It looks like Russia was de-escalating this crisis, right? But don't tell that to the Biden administration or NATO or the Western mainstream media, because to listen to any of them, you would think that this de-escalation is fake and that the threat is very real. Please keep sending us your money here at NATO, because we need your money, right? We need your weapons. We need your military bravado. We need your troops. Heck, even Canada just donated millions of dollars and weapons to NATO, just so in Ukraine, to make sure to protect themselves against the Russian bear. So this morning, the Biden administration is going along again with this. NATO allies are saying we're not seeing a de-escalation. They're saying we don't see a de-escalation. We don't see it. In fact, we think they're building up again. We think they're ready to invade again.
And even if they are, let's say they are, worst case scenario, let's say Russia is ready to invade. Why is that any of our business? Like, right, why do we? Why is it our business?
Why is that any of our business? We have enough problems at home.
Exactly.
Okay. Like, the problem is, the reason it's our business is because NATO is ours. I mean, make no mistake about it. NATO is just an extension of the United States. It gets us off the hook in saying that, it's a NATO base. That's not a United States base. That's a NATO base. NATO is just funded by the United States. It's just an extension of, what do you think, Norway? Do you think Norway is leading the charge here? No. It's us. We run the show. Forget the fact that we have allies in NATO. It's us. We do the funding. Hey, remember President Trump got slammed for wanting to readjust the amount the United States was funding NATO? He was slammed by Congress. Like, how dare you? How dare you? This is our safety. How are we going to stand up against Russia and China? Hey, maybe we don't fund the whole thing. If, after all, this is supposed to be a whole equal partnership here among NATO allies. Why is the United States funding 70% of it? Just asking. I'm just asking for a friend. So what is the
Well, and
truth
if-
here in all of this?
And if we didn't own NATO, imagine if we tried to do the things we're doing. We probably wouldn't get away with it. I mean, that's the only reason like these allies
a
back
good
us all
point,
the
yeah.
time, and we're like, hey, we're going in with England's coming in with us. Well, that's because we're giving them a ton of money.
Right. Yeah, we're footing the bill for it. You can wrap it under guise of NATO, right? That's how you can do it. So what is the truth in all of this? You know, remember though, at the heart of this, Russia is a sovereign country with its own borders and its own freedom to move its own troops around however the hell it wants within its own borders. We do military exercises all the damn time in the United States.
We have weapons pointed at them since World War II.
1955. Yeah, since 1953 or whatever it is, when we had intercontinental ballistic missiles pointed at them. You know, they can do whatever they want inside their own borders, right? And we were told that they were going to be invading, right? But Russia is telling us they have no intention of invading Ukraine and that these are simple military exercises, but we're not listening. So what is the truth here? Well, we actually listen to the permanent...
At least they don't have somebody out here saying that the if we don't do anything, the response is going to come in the shape of a mushroom cloud or whatever it was that the Condoleezza Rice was saying. You know, the mushroom cloud thing. They haven't come up with that kind of little, that saying yet to get us all on board.
Colin Powell was holding up a little vial of whatever to say that weapons of mass destruction were there, and we need to follow this thread wherever it goes. So what is the truth here? Well, let's listen to the permanent representative of Russia to the United Nations, Dmitry Polyansky. Now, he did an interview with Aaron Mate, by the way, who's an excellent journalist. And he says all of these stories that are coming from these Western media sources are totally false. Oh, and by the way, he says, we told our Western friends months ago that we were going to be conducting these routine military exercises as part of our normal every 6-month military exercise program. Which, by the way, just if you say, oh, that's hogwash, well, that's exactly what NATO does on a regular basis at Russia's doorstep. I mean, I know. I have friends in the military who are a part of these NATO exercises, literally flying, looking at Russia via Norway. I mean, they're literally running these NATO exercises on Russia's doorstep regularly. NATO's doing... all of these guys get together, they go off the coast of Portugal, and they run all these exercises, these military
We do the
exercises.
same thing to China.
We do them with China, the South China Sea. We do, nuclear submarine drills constantly. So Russia said they were doing the same thing, and they warned us. They said, hey, in a few months, we're going to be doing these. Here's on the calendar when we're going to do it. So listen to Dmitry talk about this Western disinformation campaign.
Really striking, and it just confirms our assumption that we are living in a post-truth world where it's not important what's happening, but it is very important how it is being presented. So everybody is speaking about alleged Russian plans to attack. Some people even say that we should be sanctioned for these alleged plans to attack, and I will not be surprised if these sanctions will take place, actually, will be introduced, because this goes in the logic of our Western partners. But very few people really give themselves the possibility to analyze it and to understand who is really threatening whom. So the fact that we have a number of troops, and by the way, we never confirmed the figure of 100,000. It came out from some American sources, and it's very questionable. But okay, some number of troops. Yes, we have them at the border, but not exactly at the border ready to attack. They are in the places where they usually are. The numbers can vary. It happened before. It may happen in the future, because this is our sovereign territory, and these are our troops. So we have the right to do so. And what if the joint training with Belarus is mentioned, and this is the case now, I can tell you that these trainings take place from time to time, several times a year, and this one exactly was not a surprise. We notified about it several months ago, so it is a planned exercise of our joint allied forces of Russia and Belarus. Nothing extraordinary. I remember the tweet of Aaron, where he also mentioned several Google searches with a number of Russian troops on the Ukrainian border, which are very much similar to what is now being promoted in the media. And there was no fuss about it at that time. So it happened before. again, we are not new to this kind of allegation, but of course, the scope of this allegation now is something remarkable. It has never.
Yeah, it's remarkable, right? Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that America's media companies can't be trusted? You mean to tell me that the same media companies in the United States, they get their talking points directly from the intelligence agencies and political officials? Those people can't be trusted? I'm shocked. I'm shocked to see that gambling is going on inside of this establishment. I mean, do you think that this sounds like a conspiracy theory? Well, some amazing reporting by Max Blumenthal previously uncovered documents that showed that Reuters, the news agency, the Thomson Reuters news agency, and the BBC were involved in covert United Kingdom program to weaken Russia's state influence by releasing propaganda in the press. Here it is.
You remember when Reuters used to mean something?
Yeah, I do. Back in the day. Reuters, BBC, and Bellingcat participated in covert UK Foreign Office funded programs to weaken Russia, leaked documents reveal. Yeah. So what they were doing was training, Reuters were training Russian journalists overseen by Reuters and the British Foreign Office, such to produce an attitude and change in the participants, promoting a positive perception of the United Kingdom. They promoted regime change inside of Russia, trying to undermine the Russian government across Eastern Europe and into Asia. So last year we learned that Reuters was involved in a propaganda campaign against Russia. And then here today, just a few hours ago, here today is the front cover of Reuters. Okay, remember, this is the news agency you can trust. NATO says Russia still adding troops to Ukraine buildup. Thank you, Reuters. And here's an excerpt. At the start of 2 days of talks among NATO and defense ministers, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg appeared unconvinced that the threat of a Russian invasion of Ukraine had lessened and voiced guarded hopes for democracy. He said, quote, "We have not seen any withdrawal of Russian forces. And of course, that contradicts the message of diplomatic efforts," Stoltenberg said. "What we see is that they have increased the number of troops, and more troops are on their way. So far, no de-escalation." Now, NATO is considering new steps to deter Russia on its eastern flank, according to reports, according to Reuters. On its eastern flank, so they're going to consider adding additional troops over there now. The United States just announced that it's sending 3,000 additional troops to Poland this morning, in addition to the thousands that have already been sent to the region without congressional approval, right? No, you're just going to send American troops? For what reason? They've already been sent to Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia. Just keep sending troops. Meanwhile, the Russians say, hey, these are part of normal military exercises. And where do you get these numbers of 150,000 troops?
It's like you got somebody sitting there counting them.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, drop your head down. No, I think I counted him twice. Wait.
Like
1, 2.
They hired the count from Sesame Street.
Yeah. One Russian soldier.
But it's amazing to read these articles because, like, in one article, it's 105,000 troops. And then another article, it's 150,000 troops. And then literally another article a few minutes later, it's, there's 200,000 troops there. Yeah, it's like,
wow, they're like rabbits over there in Russia.
Yeah, just pops around. And he's like, where do they even get this number from? Dimitri's like, where do they get this number from? He's like, I don't even know that there's that many troops. He's like, but that's what the Western media is saying. Okay.
Well, it's not like if you're a military operation, it's not like they're going to say even on the Russian media, if it was some kind of covert op, yeah, we're sending 200,000 troops over to the Ukraine border just to intimidate them a little bit.
And you hear from Vladimir Putin, right? See, if you talk about what Vladimir Putin says, then you're some sort of a Russia apologist, right? But look, I've been around the block too long as a journalist and worked in the belly of the mainstream media. I know how these things work. When you have on your air coming up next now, we're gonna hear from former CIA analyst who's gonna talk about the escalating crisis in Russia and the Ukraine, and then you have a general on, right? Then they put a general on TV, like this general who's now on the dole and on the payroll, right?
So just out of curiosity, I Googled how many troops does Russia have total. And according to this article, I'd have to look into it more, but it's estimating around 850,000 troops total. Now, I don't know if that's true again, but if that's true, and they have 200,000 of them on the Ukraine border, that would make zero sense.
Well, I don't exactly right, and it also makes zero sense because, as Dmitry pointed out, he's like, we're not even at the border. We're in the normal areas where we normally conduct exercises. And by the way, we've done these before, and there's been no kerfluffle about it. No one's cared at all that we've done these before. But now suddenly there's concern about it. But the Biden administration this morning, I mean, all you need to do is just go to Google and look at the top stories on this de-escalation process. And, look at, NATO says, look at this. NATO says Russian troop buildup near Ukraine continues. That's the USA Today.
Despite their claims.
You can really believe that.
Despite them telling us that they're not doing that, and despite lack of evidence, they're still doing it.
USA Today is one of the worst rags. Absolutely.
I think it's funny. Richard Blackstone in here is saying Biden is giddy about having his own war. And it's like, that's true. Like, think about it. Biden's backed all these wars all this time. And he's like, finally, I get to have my own war.
Right. I've always had to back these other ones from other presidents. Now I get my own war. Got to stop this Putin aggression. But we already know that they've been working, the Pentagon. We already know that the CIA has been actively working to foist propaganda throughout Asia and throughout rest of Europe to force regime change in Russia, to train journalists. I mean, I come back to the story that there are these leaked documents that show that Reuters, the BBC. Do you think, by the way, let me just ask you guys in the chat room, do you think that this just ends with Reuters and the BBC? No. This is just the tip of the iceberg, according to the reporting. No way that that's it. Give me a break. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Do you remember, I remember a time when you would see that Reuters logo or the Associated Press, and that actually meant something. Like, you'd see that and you could pretty much be like, okay, this is where real news is coming from. This is where most news companies get their news. They source Associated Press and Reuters.
Reuters. Yeah.
And now it's like, now what? That's been caught. Who did Bezos buy it or something? Like, what happened?
Yeah. So now when you're reading your local newspaper and you see that it's not from your local reporter, but it's from Reuters or it's from Associated Press, I mean, think about that for a second. And my gosh, that you have one reporter from the Associated Press who, gets laughed at by the Pentagon when he asks tough questions, or the State Department when he asks tough questions about this media information. Like, we're about to see a film that's created by the Russians that show that Ukraine is killing Russian soldiers, and that's the impetus for invasion. Like, this is the crap that we're being told to believe. If you like this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, we have a membership program. For the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support independent journalism just by going to morninginvest.com/join.
You get access to exclusive videos, plus the ability to join and chat with us live. We really appreciate your subscription, and you are supporting independent journalism.